My name is Barbara A. Morales. I'm 36 years old, and the night my husband told me to sleep on the couch was the night he accidentally erased our entire life. I work as a senior logistics coordinator for a regional manufacturing company. I live in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte, and my life has always been structured around routine. Early mornings, long work days, steady income, predictable evenings. Stability has always mattered to me. My husband Adrian is 33. We've been married for 4 years and living together for 6. No kids. Mortgage in both our names. 2 cars in the driveway. On paper, we were stable, balanced, normal. Adrian works in event marketing. He's outgoing, sharp-tongued, and extremely aware of how he's perceived. He likes nice things, designer labels, upscale restaurants, weekend trips that photograph well. I don't mind spending money. I just prefer it to make sense. Last Saturday, we were at a mall about 30 minutes away. It wasn't a special occasion, just another weekend errand run that somehow turned into him browsing luxury boutiques. That's usually how it goes. He walked out of one store holding a watch that probably cost more than my first car. Bright logo, flashy face, obviously expensive. He didn't ask if I liked it. He said he loved it and asked if I was putting it on my card or if he should. I asked how much it was. $3,400, he said casually. I actually laughed because I assumed he was joking. He wasn't. I told him no. Not angrily, not dramatically. Just no. That wasn't a reasonable purchase for us right now. He froze, stared at me like I had embarrassed him in front of the entire store. He reminded me we both make good money, that we have savings, that his friend Kyle just got one from his wife, that I never do spontaneous grand gestures. I told him spontaneous and financially irresponsible aren't the same thing. His expression hardened. That public mask he uses slipped slightly. He put the watch back, but not gently. Then he walked past me without another word and headed straight for the parking lot. The drive home was silent for exactly 12 minutes. Then he said very calmly that he couldn't believe he married someone so small-minded. I didn't raise my voice. I said if his definition of being loved is a $3,400 accessory, then we probably define marriage differently. He stared out the window the rest of the way. When we got home, he didn't cook like he usually does on Saturdays. Instead, he changed into something tight and expensive, styled his hair more carefully than normal, and said he was going out with friends. Guys' night, downtown, new club. Before leaving, he looked at me in the living room and said something that felt rehearsed. You're sleeping on the couch until you apologize for refusing to buy me that watch. There was no humor in his tone, no exaggeration, just a directive. I looked at him for about 3 seconds. Then I said, that's fine. He seemed satisfied, like he expected resistance and was pleased he didn't get any. He left around 9:15 p.m. I sat there for a while, not angry, not shocked, just thinking. By 9:40, I had made a phone call. Not to him, not to one of his friends, not to argue. To a moving company. I didn't sound emotional on the phone. I asked basic questions. Availability, same-day service, full house load. They had a crew finishing a small job nearby and could be at my address by 11 p.m. I booked it. While I waited, I opened my laptop and reviewed our mortgage documents. The house was jointly titled, but the down payment had come almost entirely from my premarital savings. I already knew the numbers. I knew the equity. I knew what my options were. Then I transferred half of our joint checking account into my personal account. Not all of it, just half. Clean split. At 10:15, I called my cousin Mateo. He owns a small warehouse space for his import business. I told him I needed temporary storage. He didn't ask questions, just said, bring it. At 10:52, the moving truck pulled into the driveway. 4 men. Efficient, neutral. Used to walking into houses that no longer feel like homes. I walked them through the property calmly. Bedroom furniture that I had purchased, the living room sectional, the dining set, kitchen appliances I had paid for, my office equipment, garage tools, even the washer and dryer that were in my name. They worked fast. While they wrapped furniture in padded blankets, I opened the safe in my office and gathered documents. Mortgage paperwork, insurance files, vehicle titles, my passport, spare debit cards, backup hard drives. By midnight, the house felt hollow. Empty walls echoed differently. I left Adrian's clothes, his shoes, his vanity products, his decorative pieces he insisted on buying because they matched some aesthetic trend he followed online. Everything I personally paid for was gone. At 12:30 a.m., I drove my SUV out of the driveway behind the moving van. Before leaving, I did one more thing. I scheduled the utilities in my name to terminate the next morning. Electricity, internet, streaming services. my cell phone plan, which he was still on. No drama, no note, just logistics. At 1:15 a.m., I handed the movers cash and thanked them. Then I drove to a short-term rental townhouse I had booked during the move. Adrian texted me at 1:48 a.m. "Where are you?" I didn't respond. At 2:12 a.m., he called. I let it ring. At 2:25 a.m., another text. "Why is the driveway empty?" I placed my phone face down on the nightstand and went to sleep. For the first time in months, I slept without rehearsing arguments in my head. He got home around 2:30 a.m. after a night of clubbing. That was when he realized I had taken his directive literally. If I was sleeping on the couch, there wasn't going to be a house attached to it. The next morning, the calls started. By 8:15 a.m., he had called 12 times. I was already sitting in a family law attorney's office by then. I didn't rush into it emotionally. On the drive over, I had looked up 3 firms and picked the one with the most straightforward reviews. No dramatic branding, just procedural competence. An hour later, I was sitting across from a woman in her mid-40s who had clearly seen every version of marital collapse imaginable. I explained the watch, the ultimatum, the pattern of entitlement that had been building for months, the subtle financial pressure, the public comparisons to other couples. She asked one question that mattered. "Are you done?" I said yes. She nodded once and began outlining next steps: separation filing, asset inventory, temporary orders, documentation. We had no children. That simplified everything. Most of the major purchases were traceable to premarital funds. That worked in my favor. At 10:42 a.m., I signed the initial paperwork to file for divorce. No swelling music, no shaking hands, just ink on paper and a notary stamp. At 11:03 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I stepped outside before answering. His voice was sharp and breathless. "The power went out. The Wi-Fi is dead. My car payment declined. What kind of childish stunt are you pulling?" I told him calmly that I had separated finances and moved out. There was silence on the line. "You can't just move out of your own house." "I can move out of a shared house," I corrected, and I did. He switched tactics instantly, said I was overreacting, that the couch comment was just frustration, that he didn't expect me to leave. I told him I had filed for divorce that morning. The tone changed. Not anger, not arrogance. Panic. Barbara, don't do this over a watch." "It wasn't over a watch," I said. "It was over a boundary." I told him he would be served within the week and that all further communication should go through attorneys. Then I hung up. He called back 6 more times. I didn't answer. By Tuesday afternoon, he had been formally served at his office. I didn't witness it, but I heard about it within minutes. He called from an unknown number, voice shaking with disbelief and anger. "You actually had me served at work." "That's the address on record," I replied calmly. He said it was humiliating, that his manager pulled him into a conference room afterward, that people saw the papers, that he looked like some kind of criminal. I listened without interrupting. Then I told him I had a proposal regarding the house. Silence. The house had appreciated significantly in the last 2 years. The market had climbed hard. There was real equity there. I wasn't interested in dragging things out emotionally. I wanted clean resolution. "We sell it," I said. "We split the net proceeds 50-50 after mortgage payoff and fees." He pushed back immediately. "I'm not moving." "I already did," I answered. He said I was the one who left, that he couldn't afford something comparable alone, that I was destabilizing his life. "I also can't afford to leave my equity frozen in a house I'm not living in," I said. There was a pause. "So this is revenge?" "No," I replied. "This is liquidation." He didn't like that word. He said married people fight and move on, that this was one argument, that couples survive worse. "Couples fight," I agreed. "They don't test each other's housing security over luxury purchases." He tried another angle. "What if I apologize?" I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, "Apologies don't reverse patterns. They just acknowledge them." Legally, neither of us could force the other out without court involvement. But a judge would almost certainly order a buyout or a sale if we couldn't agree. I made it simple. "Ian, you refinance and buy out my half at appraised value within 60 days, I said. "Or we list and sell." He asked if I was serious. "I've already authorized my attorney to file a petition for sale if necessary," I told him. His breathing changed. "You're blowing up our entire life over one fight." "No," I said. "I'm restructuring it." He hung up first. An hour later, my attorney called. His lawyer wanted to discuss valuation. That told me everything. The appraisal happened Friday. I didn't attend. The number came back Monday morning, higher than either of us expected. After mortgage payoff and closing costs, we were looking at a 6-figure split each. Money clarifies people. He called that afternoon. Not yelling, not dramatic, controlled. Refinancing isn't realistic for me, he admitted. My debt-to-income ratio won't pass underwriting alone. I already knew that. So that leaves selling, he said. Yes. Long pause. Then he asked something unexpected. Where am I supposed to go? It wasn't sarcasm. It was fear. The same way I did, I said. You find something you can afford on your own. He said he didn't plan for this. Neither did I answered. By Wednesday, both attorneys agreed to list with a neutral realtor. Showings would begin in 2 weeks. We had to meet to coordinate access. Saturday morning, I pulled into the driveway. The house looked staged already. He had toned down his decor for listing photos. He opened the door before I knocked. He looked tired. Not club tired, actually tired. We walked through room by room making checklists. Touch-up paint, minor repairs, closet decluttering, no shouting, no accusations. At one point, he stood in the living room looking at the empty spaces where my furniture used to be. I didn't think you would actually leave, he said quietly. I didn't think you would actually test me, I replied. That landed. Before I left, he asked one more thing. If I had just bought the watch myself, would you still be here? I thought about it honestly. Probably not, I said, because it was never about the watch. It was about the assumption that I would fold. Once that assumption breaks, everything built on it collapses too. The house went live on Thursday. By Sunday evening, we had 3 offers above asking. We accepted the strongest one. 30-day close, clean financing. Efficient. That efficiency unsettled him more than anger would have. Monday night, he texted from a new number. Can we meet one more time before closing? I called instead of texting. I'm not meeting in person, I said. If you need to discuss something, we can do it now. Pause. Is there any scenario where we stop the sale and try counseling? Direct. No. Another pause. Were you already checked out before the watch? I answered honestly. I had noticed patterns. The watch clarified them. He inhaled sharply. I didn't think you would ever actually call my bluff. That's how bluffs work, I said. We ended the call without yelling. No theatrics. Just quiet finality. After that, I blocked his number. Not out of anger, out of structure. All communication was supposed to go through attorneys. Unknown numbers started calling. I declined them. Voicemails arrived. I deleted them. If something was urgent, it could come through legal channels. That's what they exist for. The inspection came back clean. Minor requests, a cracked outlet cover, a loose railing on the back deck. Nothing structural, nothing emotional. I authorized the repairs through the realtor without speaking to Adrian directly. He signed off through his attorney. Everything was procedural, clean, impersonal. That's how it should have been from the beginning. The closing date approached quickly. The night before the final walkthrough, I drove past the house once. Not to reminisce, not to spiral, just to confirm exterior condition. Lights were on inside, curtains half drawn. For a brief second, I wondered what he was thinking in there, standing in rooms that no longer felt stable. Then I kept driving. We signed remotely. Funds cleared by 4:12 p.m. My half hit my account at 4:47. By 5:05, I had transferred the proceeds into a separate investment account. No ceremony, no reflection, just execution. 2 weeks later, the divorce paperwork moved from procedural to final. No children. No alimony disputes, comparable incomes, retirement accounts untouched, assets divided. Clean cases move quickly. His attorney sent the final settlement agreement. Mine reviewed it. I signed electronically during a lunch break. 3 minutes. 4 years of marriage reduced to a PDF and a confirmation email. That evening, another unknown number flashed on my phone. I declined it without hesitation. 5 minutes later, an email came from an address I didn't recognize. I know you blocked me. I just wanted to say I never thought it would end like this. No apology, no accountability, just disbelief. I forwarded it to my attorney. Respond? No legal obligation, she replied. Advise against reopening communication. So I didn't. I changed my email settings to filter unfamiliar senders automatically. That weekend, I finished setting up my new townhouse. Smaller, neutral, fully mine. Mortgage in my name only. Utilities automated. Insurance updated. Everything structured. One evening, sitting at my kitchen counter, I replayed the mall moment again. Not emotionally. Analytically. The watch wasn't the trigger. The entitlement was. The assumption that a financial boundary equaled disrespect. The expectation that pressure would produce apology. Once I declined that trade, the structure cracked. A mutual friend reached out a few weeks later. Said Adrian had been telling people I overreacted, that I chose ego over marriage. I didn't defend myself. People who reduce collapse to a single moment rarely want the full timeline. I wasn't interested in narrative management. I was interested in forward movement. Forward required distance. Months passed. Life felt structurally different. Not dramatic, not tragic, just stable. I refinanced my car at a lower rate because I could. Rebalanced investments, updated beneficiaries, cleaned up everything that still carried his name. Systems matter to me. When something destabilizes, I rebuild cleaner. I heard through that same friend that Adrian started dating someone from his gym. I felt nothing. Growth doesn't require my commentary. One evening, sitting alone in my kitchen reviewing my monthly budget, I realized something simple. There were no shared categories anymore, no second card on the account, no unexpected spending patterns to reconcile, no negotiations about whether stability equaled love. The silence wasn't heavy. It was earned. People have asked if I regret not trying harder. The honest answer is no. Trying harder only works when both people are negotiating in good faith. Ultimatums over luxury purchases aren't negotiations. They're leverage tests. And if you fold on the first one, you'll keep being tested. I don't hate him. I don't resent him. I learned something about compatibility. Respect and stability are not dramatic qualities. They're quiet ones. And when they're threatened, the response doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be decisive.